I'd just shave it right down the middle and just grow it out here. That would be cool. I'd be making a statement. I'd be making a statement. Okay, so that screenshot, I rarely brag. I don't like bragging. That screenshot was the last round of arrows shot last night before watching Criminal Minds with the wife. 15 yards, pretty good. Kilt that tin foil, or aluminum foil. I don't even know if they make tin foil anymore. What are we going to make our hats out of? But yeah, I'm doing all right. Some stuff. After a torturous 2 hours switching our phone service from Consumer Cellular to Spectrum, came down here and I worked some Osage down to a growth ring. And believe me, after switching our phones with all that rigmarole and freeing up and pins and working a wonky stave down to a growth ring was pure pleasure. I have to say that Georgia, she's the one that helped us secondly. The first Spectrum person we got on the phone, she was not a people person. She was lazy and just wretched. No help whatsoever. And then we called and got Georgia. Sweetest person in the world that even got into a conference call with us to Consumer Cellular to make sure that we were successful. Go Georgia. Ooh, 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 ooh. But I'm looking at these things. These have pretty bends. This one, it's a curious one, where when you look at the belly, and this is what I saw, where was it? The belly's worked down to one growth ring. And people, numerous people, have commented I should make it as a reflex deflex, but this is committed. This is committed for somebody's a gull wing, so it has to be a gull wing. But when I was a young kid, even into my older years, I liked kite flying, right? And I would make experimental kites. Where is this going? Well, there's a lesson here. And I always said if it doesn't fly right side up, that kite will fly upside down. What does that mean? What is that logic? Where is that going to lead us? Well, this is an experiment. Shooting it as an R/D bow, right? Comparing speed and functionality to the gull wing. But it's also an experiment. See, flying upside down here, if I do this as a gull wing, with work down to one growth ring, is that going to work? And you'd say, of course it is, because it's Osage hair. Right? But there's different stuff happening. I was thinking this morning that maybe there's some kind of pressure valve. Maybe there's some release of pressure when you've got descending growth rings. I don't know. I might be barking up the wrong tree. But if this is one continuous growth ring, will it want to delaminate? Will the pressures from bending want to pull this apart where, and I know I'm reaching, it doesn't make 100% sense, but it still is one of those things where you don't always know what's going on 100% of the time. Is there some structural benefit of having descending growth rings in a bow? I would say no. I would say this is just as good having a belly that's one growth ring as, having descending growth rings. But I don't know for certain. I do not know. I will not know for sure until this is sinew-backed with one growth ring down the belly and I'm shooting it to see. Because with bows, there's a lot of mysterious things that happen. I'm taking this weird guess that, there's a possibility there might be delaminations in here because this is one continuous thing and the stresses and all this, that other thing, whatnot, etc. But I don't know 100%. I want to be pants and suspenders. Gosh, in the camera, it looks like there's a gink here. maybe it's the angle. There really isn't. There's a knot right here that affects it, but this is a beautifully bent bow. Now, when you brace these things, I can tell you from experience, I've had my bend here, I've had my bend out here. And when you brace it and you draw it, it's a completely different look. When you have the bend out here, you might see more of the reset handle, so it would be this beautiful curve. When you have the bend here, sometimes it looks like it flattens this part out and then all the curve is here and it looks like just a deflex limb. This one basically has the same curve profile, but, I mean through this area, but then it's straight here. Oh, this would be so easy to like recurve these tips and have a cupid bow. Thin, easy to bend. But I was sent a picture by the Seaman. He showed a bow from this profile, this angle, and that bow seemed to have a little bit more bend closer to the handle. But you know, sometimes when you're bending these things, the bends happen where they happen, and so this is going to be very close to that bow. This is the one I was working. I got down to a growth ring, right, and I saw where the guy that sold this to me had scalped it. And by scalped it, when I worked down to a growth ring starting at this end, big violation, it was lower in this spot than what I was working. And another scalp up here, so I had to work down another growth ring. But, you know, it's nothing but a thing. There's kind of a weird carbuncle there, but, you know, it's a character bow. The only question is, will it be a pretty bow? Yeah, I know that, you know, when you're thinking, I need an Osage recurved flat bow, sinew backed, it's got to work well. It's got to be fast, it's got to be competent, it's got to be structurally sound. But I know how Taylor Swift that sounds. I like them to look good too. I do. It's got to be pleasing. This is pleasing. Shape. Just in a different way. Trad versus primitive. And you know what I've found? You've got primitive. You've got traditional. And you've got compound. And I admit it. Like all of them. There was a while when I went from hunting traditional, primitive to compound. I had fun, you know. I had 5 pins on my rig. It was a Hoyt, and it wasn't like the fanciest one, but it was pleasing to the eye. It was a pretty compound bow, and it worked well. My friend had his set for 65 pounds. Boom, the let off, you know. I could do that. I can shoot a 65-pound self-bow. No big deal. But I had mine set for 50 because I target shot the heck out of that, you know. Hour after hour after hour. So I had 5 pins and they were set up to 80 yards, you know what I mean? Because part of it is just like, I love shooting tight shot groups at 80 yards. It's fun. And target shooting, hunting, they're both enjoyable activities. But I had a mechanical failure with that compound bow on a deer. The arrow veered, wound up shooting the poor deer in a bad spot, and ran up to the house and grabbed this, wound up finding the deer, and boink, no problem. It's like, at the distances that I hunted, sub 20 yards, and I was a good tracker, and I always hunted from the ground, so I was cagey and sneaky and could anticipate where the deer would be, you know, that crawl, literally crawling. It's like, these things work. Why do I have this bow with all these possible mechanical failures? So I wound up giving it away to a kid, you know, making it right, and then giving it away and just saying, I'm not going to shoot compound anymore. There's just too many gizmos and gadgets, and when you're at 20 yards, you know, or less, what was the closest you ever shot a deer at? 6 yards? Why bother? Why do I need a bow that can shoot with pinpoint accuracy at 80 yards when I would never even shoot at a deer because they could get up and move and you could shoot them in the bad spot or just lose your arrow. A lot of stuff can happen between here and 80 yards away. And I'm not hunting bighorn sheep in the mountains. I live in woody Michigan. In the woods, there are no 80-yard shots. Just saying. But yeah, I came down here with the full intention of talking about what irks me as far as I want to learn about a subject, right? And I go to YouTube, type in that subject, and I'm getting bad information. In fact, all of the videos have bad information. One particular aspect of bad historical information, of course, is Penobscot bows. That irks me. You see them, double bows. Double bows existed in areas. One good reason for a double bow is you're working with absolutely green wood. You don't have time to fire harden it. You need a bow. I don't know what that circumstance would be, because when you're thinking of survival, there's shelter, there's water, there's fire before you even get to getting food. You don't immediately go, oh, I'm hungry, because you can go a long time without food. You can go less time without water. Shelter is of utmost urgency, and probably fire too if your clothes are wet, right? And so if you're making a survival bow, you've got shelter and fire already. You might have cut your stave in preparation. Oh, that's a nice, because we all are walking. When I'm running on the bike path, I find myself looking for straight trees. You know, oh, I could make arrows out of that, because you're always looking for materials. But making that survival bow, and I am trolling people here. I'm making a survival bow. And it's like the first thing that they did, I need to make a bow because I need to kill a deer. You know, no. You've already got fire, you've got shelter, so you can dry your bow instead of taking this beautiful stave, making a bow, shooting it green, destroying it. Because you didn't bother to force dry it at all, you know. You've got the fire. You're in survival mode, you've got the freaking fire. Unless you're running from, I don't know, whatever, zombies. But where was I going with this? Penobscot bows. Watch it. I made a Penobscot bow. And then there's all the people in the comment sections. That's a wonderful bow. They will say, and I've seen this in comment sections, the Penobscots have used those for generations. They had to, because they didn't have access to good bow wood. So they had to come up with this bow. What sense does that make? They're eastern woodlands, you know, they're Maine and thereabouts. They had ash for bows. They had oak for bows. They had hickory for bows. They had chokecherry for bows. The Penobscot bow was developed after the year 1900 by Frank Loring, who was a showman that needed a prop bow that was cool. You know, so that irks me. The other thing is Welsh Longbows. There, I said it. In years past, I have gotten into so much trouble with members of various British longbow societies because I made claims. I would say, reasonably, that first of all, when you get beyond the late 1800s, further back, you know, Victorian times, that the English longbow, whatever that really is, didn't have the strict width thickness ratios and had to have a round belly. I just said that an English longbow wasn't that strictly created Victorian style longbow. That they were longbows. They didn't necessarily have the same width to thickness ratio that Victorian longbows did. And when they worked with whitewoods, which there were more English longbows, I'm talking going back far, you know, when they started using them. They were made out of other woods besides yew that was imported from Italy and España, Spain. And maybe areas of, I don't know. There was also yew in mountainous areas in other parts of Europe, kind of in that area. They made them out of other stuff. You know, ash, for example, was a big one. And I would always claim you cannot build an ash longbow that will stand up to prolonged use, building it in the same way you can a yew longbow. Rational, right? And fortunately, there was a member, I'm not going to name drop, big name, one of the British longbow societies, that I talked to him and he agreed with me. Yeah, you know, you have to build bows according to the structural specifications of that wood. You cannot build an ash longbow just like you would a yew longbow. Well, you can, and then they'll make a video of it. They'll shoot it small number of times and it looks good. It doesn't get massive string follow, but you take that same bow and a year later it's going to be a noodle when it's unstrung because it's got massive string follow because it's white ash and not yew. Now I'm going to go into Welsh longbows, okay? The precursor, was it Edward IV, I think, was battling the Welsh. I think it was Edward IV. I get kind of mixed up on this. And he noticed how the Welsh longbows, I'm doing this, you know, were a powerful weapon that could do all sorts of stuff. Documentation. There's a Welsh longbow shot through like a 6-inch thick oak door. No, it didn't. So you have to take documentation, you know, with a grain of salt. But by and large, you can probably say that English longbows sprung from Welsh longbows, which sprung from all the other tall bows that were in Europe at that time. They didn't invent longbows, you know, after the year 1400 or 1300, whenever it was. They were Europe for thousands of years. Man tall bows, right? And a lot of them were flat bows, you know, and wide. So they understood. The yew longbows, going way back, were narrower. They knew. These people aren't dummies. They made bows. They lived by the bow. They used bows for hunting. They used bows for warfare. They understood generational knowledge. But I'm interested because I've got elm. I want to make a Welsh longbow. There's so much misinformation about it. I just watched a video and I commented on it. In the beginning was, come on guys, you put horn knocks on a whitewood bow. You basically just made an English longbow. You know, go through YouTube. Type in Welsh longbow and all you're going to see are English longbows. You're not going to see a different style of bow. And I do not believe that Welsh longbows made out of wych elm or wych elm, I don't know how to pronounce that, or ash, you know. I don't believe that they look just like English longbows. And they certainly didn't take the extra time to put horn or antler knocks on a bow that doesn't need it. What's the point in that? You know, so it irks me that you can't go to YouTube. I need to do more research. I need to remember the name of this this pair. I think it was two guys, Welsh bow makers, that also agreed with me. Now I'm coming into the time in my bow making when everyone thought, and it was regarded, to want to get into another round two, a fight with the English bow societies, longbow societies. I entered into bow making at the time when everyone thought that English longbows looked like Victorian longbows. I mean, that was it. No one was going to admit, because of their strict rules, that there were short bows in England back in the day, that there were horn bows, composite bows back then. They made crossbows that were composite bows. You know, when you look at the range of composite bows, horn bows, you know, highly reflexed, size, the whole 9 yards, sinew and horn, they were used in places that had wetter weather than just arid deserts. You know, so the whole notion that they couldn't or they didn't have horn bows in the area of Western Europe is wrong. They had horn bows in Hungary. But, you know, they were all over the place. And so the reason why they used just self bows, you know, basically economy of materials, economy of time. They were durable. They were used a lot on foot, not on horseback. They had access to it. You know, and I had these argumentative things that, like, they weren't all long, looking like Mary Rose bows back then. There was a mixture of bows, including short bows. And the Welsh bowmaker and his assistant or his partner, you know, agreed with me. Yeah. Which then leads me back to, what does a Welsh longbow look like? Are they just using the name longbow just because it's a bow and just everyone calls it bows? Did the Welsh longbow, was it actually, oh, I should have had this prepared off. I've got it somewhere, I don't know. Was it actually a 6.5 foot tall bow? Could it have been 5 foot? Was it a D bow? What is a Welsh longbow? But unfortunately, the noise is that the Welsh longbow was a precursor of the English longbow with no modification, no evolution. And it was an elm bow that was narrow, deep, with a rounded belly that had horn knocks. In that case, I call BS. There are some, I think it was Gerald of Wales, and this is a weird one again, you know, you have to take things with a grain of salt. It said that they were ugly, crudely made elm bows that were 4 feet long. 4 feet, again, that's a short bow. Why would you call it longbows if they're 4 feet long? I don't know. Were they 4 feet long? Maybe the foot was a different measurement. Maybe in our feet they were actually 5 feet long, which would be a reasonable bow. No horn knocks. You don't need it on an elm bow. What the heck was a Welsh elm bow? What did it look like? What were those bows look like? They weren't lined up, and in the same video they say that they would sit there. They were the like assassin's weapon that you could shoot at 300 yards. Well, 300 yards? Really? Again, taking it with a grain of salt. Or were they, in the rough woodlands of Wales, were they more closer range weapons that didn't have to be that long? Can you drop a horse with a 5 foot long bow? Yes, you can. Those horses weren't wearing armor. Long story short, with any of this stuff, you know, I think it's important to say, I don't know. This is how it could have happened. This is how it probably was, but I don't know. Were these people so much? This is how it happened. The bad telephone game. The Penobscot bow was used for multiple generations because they didn't have good bow wood. They were designed to hunt whales. Not the country, but the aquatic animal. Bad telephone game. I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling here, and I credit you for listening. I just am kind of bugged that if you YouTube or Google search something, you get some authority that says this is the way it was, when it's more important to say, I'm not sure how it was, but we need to find out. Circling back to, this probably will be okay with the belly following one growth ring. In fact, and it would be somewhat magical and kind of interesting to have a one growth ring belly on a short bow. And I don't know if it's going to cause problems, because I've never made a single growth ring belly bow, ever. Out of the hundreds of bows that I've made, I've never made a single growth ring belly bow. So that is it. I don't have anything to work on today aside from, I do need to prepare the sinew, but I want to get this stuff taken care of. I want to put together Jesse's bow and get Gerald's bow roughed out. I'm sorry, Gerald, I'm not going to make a board bow for you. Your blank is going to be made from a stave. You don't know what you want, but you want to have a stave-made hickory bow blank. I am the puppet master. Well, I did it. 26 minutes. You must be bored if you watched the whole thing.